everybody, it's Lucinda from Tricot. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about brioche knitting and getting ready for the Artyarns knit along. So the first thing I would like to suggest is that you get two very high contrasting colors. And if you're not sure, you can always take a picture with black and white to see if there's enough contrast. And the reason is because you will have a really nice dramatic effect. So for example, you could go with something like this. This is the Chilita colorway, and you go with a contrast that, let's say the red, that's going to be quite different. It'll be easy to see the stitches, and it will also have a beautiful effect. The other thing is you can go with, in this case, this is like the shawl that I'm knitting, and it's a dark purple. And while there may be some overlap from the multi, you do see that there's a stark contrast with the paler colors as well as the blue, so that when you're knitting, you will be able to see it. I'll show you my shawl that I've been knitting in another video, and we'll talk about these two colors and actually knitting the shawl next. So the first thing is we need to do a swatch. And in many cases, we do a swatch to make sure we have the right tension. But in this case, we want to do the right, the knitting brioche swatch to make sure that we understand the stitch. About the brioche swatch. So the first thing to notice is that we obviously have 5 stitches on each end that have been knit. But in between that, we have a stitch that has been either knit or purled, depending on which side you look at. So it looks knit on one side, purled on the other. The other stitch right next to it is a stitch that has been slipped, and it has a yarn over. So this yarn over, I like to call it a shawl. So it's kind of like a game where all the stitches are looking for a shawl, but they can only have one every other row. So in this case, every other stitch is going to have a shawl. So right now, the first row of brioche is going to be knit. So in this case, I'm starting with color A. So if we have the light color, we'll knit our first 5 stitches. Gotta get them up to the front here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first stitch has a shawl, but it's getting way too hot. So now we need to knit it and get rid of the shawl. So we knit the stitch that has been slipped previously with its yarn over. Then we need to bring the stitch to the front, the yarn to the front, slip as if to purl, and we create a yarn over. And now we're going to knit the stitch with its previous yarn over. We bring the yarn to the front, we slip the stitch as if to purl, we create a yarn over, and then we knit the stitch. So if we take a look at this, we have now a stitch that has a yarn over, a stitch that has been knit, a stitch that has been slipped with a yarn over, and one that has been knit. So we continue this way until there's a little trap stitch over here. So we're going to slip the stitch with the yarn in front, create the yarn over, and we knit the stitch together. So we're constantly giving a shawl to a stitch that doesn't have one, and we're knitting or purling the other stitch. So I just finished row 2. If you notice, I have one color on the left of the red and one color on the right. Here in the pattern it says slide. Very easy to do since we're on a circular needle. So now we've slid over here, and now we're going to do 2 rows of brioche purl. So we still knit our edge stitches so that we have a nice clean edge. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we're going to do a brioche purl. In order to purl, we need to have the yarn in the front. So this one's going to be an easier row because we don't have to switch from front to back. So now we knit this stitch that has been previously slipped with its shawl partner or yarn over. You purl those together. You give a yarn over to the next stitch, and you purl the next 2 together. And you give it a shawl. So one thing when you're counting your stitches for the shawl is to make sure that you count the yarn overs with their slip stitch only as 1 stitch. So you're not duplicating the number of stitches. So here we have the beginning of the Artyarns stained glass brioche knit along. So if you can just take a look that on this side, we have the dark side facing for the brioche, and on the other side we have the lighter color showing. In this case, we now have a wrong side and a right side because we have some lace interspersed here. However, whichever way you will wear it, it'll still look very good. So now, just like in the swatch, I have one color on this end and one color on that end. Let's suppose that I've just put my work down and I don't know what was the last color I used. The easiest way to take a look at it is to show. So the easiest way to understand what was the last color that you used is to take a look at your stitches in detail. So here I have a stitch that has been knit or purled, I think it was knit on that side, with the multicolor. So this is the multicolor. I can also tell because this is the stitch that has the yarn over. So if the yarn over is in a multicolor, then it means that that is the last color that was used. So when you place your work down, if you haven't noted what row you're on, the easiest way is to take a look at which is the color that has the yarn over. So in this case, it's the multi. So I'm assuming that since here's the end of my yarn, that I must have knitted and ended with the row there. So now let's take a look further. It looks like it has just been purled. So in this case, I just finished with a purl brioche row, which if you look at the pattern, this will be the 4th row. So make sure if you've left your work sitting that you take a look and see what color is the yarn over and where's your yarn, and you'll be able to figure out what row you were left on. Thank you.